Hey, and welcome to What Makes a Difference. And we are delighted to have back is Chief Inspector Mark Mangnall from Greater Manchester Police.
Welcome back, Mark. It's lovely to see you.
Thank you for having me back.
You have been very, very busy since we last spoke. Very busy.
Mhm.
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like you're doing the tour of the country, talking about the FORCER protocol these days.
Yeah, I am. In fact, I'm off to London tomorrow. I'm going to the the Bereavement by Suicide conference in London tomorrow.
Mhm.
I'm actually speaking about the FORCER protocol there as an official capacity, but it's all part of that support process that we're going to put in place for unfortunately, if we do lose a veteran to suicide, how we then support the family and friends of that person. And then I'm down in Portsmouth in June for the National Missing from Home conference. Again, talking about the FORCER protocol. And we're doing a lot of engagement at the moment with different forces across the country. Cumbria Police, for example, are going live with the FORCER protocol from early May this year. Hampshire are also doing a similar thing. They're going to be slightly later, probably late May. We just need to get a confirmation date from them. But other forces like Essex, etc., they're all showing interest in the FORCER protocol and all wanting to take that on as part of their missing from home strategies. So it's really positive at the moment. Lots of people want to get involved. Lots of people are interested in having those conversations. Only a couple of weeks ago, I had Mr. Sykes, who's our ACC lead for the Armed Forces Covenant. He arranged a national meeting with all the other forces, all the other armed forces champions within those forces. And again, we spoke about the FORCER protocol, and we're going to be setting up workshops for those different forces to start engaging with that system and learning about how they can introduce it within their force area. So again, very busy period for us at Greater Manchester, but do you know what? It's worth it, isn't it? Because once every force in the country has the FORCER protocol, and we do really see the difference in locating missings quicker and saving the lives of vulnerable veterans, then it'll be all worthwhile, won't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like you've had a really positive um, uptake or looking into what the Force Protocol is and the benefit it offers not only the missing person, veteran, their families, and also that time saved policing.
Yeah, we have. We've had no real negativity, to be honest. Every police force in the country that have engaged with us so far, I think there's about 12 police forces, including Cleveland and a few others, Lancashire, and all the Yorkshire same regiments now, aren't they? Yorkshire forces, all been really, really positive. And I can't see a way of people not being positive because at the end of the day, we're out there finding and protecting and offering support to vulnerable veterans. So what is there to push back against? At the end of the day, the process that we're introducing is really, really straightforward. None of it is rocket science. It's a really easy process for a force to implement. And it gives them that key information when that person's reported missing. So like I said, there is no need for anybody to be negative against the process, and we haven't had that. And like I said, there's a lot of engagement with other forces where people are really interested in taking on the FORCER protocol, which is excellent news, really.
So the last time we spoke, Mark, which was just after the launch in November,
Yeah.
But at that point already there were 35 people that had been successfully located and safeguarded. I think the number's gone up substantially since then, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. So we've asked just over 15,000 people when they've been reported missing to Greater Manchester Police whether they are a veteran, and we've identified 75 of those. We had the last one missing this morning, still missing, but has now been located. So we have located all 75 people, and like I've said to you previously, when I walked across that bridge to Parliament in November last year, I said to Jim Jones that my veterans and we don't have a demand. But clearly we do have a demand. Clearly there is a real issue with people going missing within that veterans community. We don't have enough data as yet to understand any sort of pattern to those people going missing. We do have obviously data around how old people are that go missing, which is what we'll bring together in a package towards the end of the pilot, which is in the next couple of weeks. But I was really concerned that we weren't going to have a demand. I think we do have a demand, and I think we'll be really, really shocked and surprised at the level of demand that we do have nationally. Once every force in the country does have the FORCER protocol, and even as these other forces start to come on board now, I think we'll be really shocked by the numbers. And hopefully we can. I've always said this: if we just save that one life by the FORCER protocol, then it's done its job, hasn't it? So we are finding lots of missing veterans all the time, and we are referring those into OpNova to make sure they're getting the help and support they need. And we're also starting to identify those repeat demand issues, those repeat missings, those people that have decided for whatever reason not to engage with OpNova as yet. But again, every time we do locate those people and we do engage with them, we're still offering them that support they need. So at some point, they might decide in their life that actually it's the point now where I need the help, I need the support, and then they've got that there and be able to access that support through OpNova.
Well, I think timing is an important thing. I'm going to circle back to those numbers because you said 75 and you were talking about, I hope there is, well, what if there's no need for this? That 75, if you think on average that there's another 14 to 15 people standing behind that are impacted when somebody is lost to suicide, that means those 75 people is actually an impact of over 1,000 people, Mark.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean it's massive numbers, isn't it? It's huge numbers of people that are impacted every day by not just veterans going missing, but all sorts of people going missing. But in the veterans community, like you said, they've got a lot of friends and colleagues and support out there, and they are all affected by people being reported missing. And we all want to understand why veterans are going missing and what we can do to prevent that. Because for me, if the FORCER protocol doesn't work because we don't have any missing veterans at some point in the future, then that's fine by me, because at the end of the day, we've put the support in place to start with to prevent those people going missing.
It's a very nice reason for something to be redundant, isn't it?
Absolutely. And we said that from the very beginning. First of all, we need to identify if we have a demand of missing veterans. We weren't aware that we had that many missing veterans in Manchester. We do now, and other forces will start to come forward to identify what their demand is and what their risk is around missing veterans. So if we get to a point where no one's reported missing, then that's fine, because at least we've identified the risk and we've put support in place to prevent that from happening.
Well, it possibly would have been then, Mark, as well, is ONS, MOD, stats and data are really hard to find. So there's never been that data in the first place to correlate, is the FORCER protocol needed or not? And clearly it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And I've just been speaking to Claire Lilly recently, and there's some recent data come out from 2021 where they're saying 253 veterans took their own life in 2021, which I believe works out about 4.8 veterans per week.
I saw that. It's horrifying.
Which is horrifying figures. It's massive numbers, isn't it, of people that have taken that decision to not be with family and friends and to take their own life, and that has to stop. And I think part of the FORCER protocol and other support through policing and other areas can eventually stop that from happening.
Well, I think there's also there's the rollover benefits, isn't there, of that FORCER protocol and the approach, and that's about getting aid to somebody as fast as possible. But there's an additional benefit there, which means that frees up other police resources to do further work elsewhere as well. So it's almost like it's the best use of your time possible for the maximum possible benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we're interacting with veterans as part of the FORCER protocol, and those people are reported missing. But once they get that support through OpNova, we're not just reducing missing people, we're reducing reoffending, people coming to custody, domestic violence. We're reducing all elements of policing, because that person's now got, support from OpNova. They've got support for the family. They've got support in finding employment. They've got support in finding housing, money worries, etc. So all that wraparound package of support for that person is preventing lots of issues further down the line, which then the police have to interact with and intervene with. So So, even though it might just be that first person's going missing, they might not have committed any other offences at any other point in their life, but they decide to go missing. And that might be because of personal situation or domestic situations. But by putting that support in place, we prevented that in the long run.
So what about the feedback from your officers on the ground that are actually using this process, that are engaging with Safe and Found online? How are they finding that? What's their feedback been like? Have you had a chance to gather that?
Yeah, so the process is through our communications room. So the log comes in, we get asked the question if someone's a veteran or currently serving, and then it gets switched to our Force Operations Centre. And then the Force Operations Centre will then check Safe and Found online. That's a continuous working process. Obviously, the Safe and Found online is relatively new for the FORCER protocol, and the database is growing. The numbers have gone up by quite a significant amount, even since our community launch event in Manchester. And we're still working on those processes. I think once this becomes a national system, and the more information we have, we'll then get that cross-border support for veterans, where we can identify the risk around people if they're reported in other force areas. So obviously, when Cumbria come on board in May, we've probably, most of us have been to Cumbria, a lovely place. Lots of people go on holiday there in the summer, in the winter. It's an all year round place to visit, isn't it? And people do get reported missing there. So if that information has been uploaded in Manchester, then Cumbria will have access to that information and be able to use that information to quickly find somebody, which is the key. We're still within a pilot phase. It's still relatively new. We're only 6 months in, and the database of people, of vulnerable veterans, is growing every day, and there's more work to do around that. But I think once other forces start to engage with that same system, then I think the numbers will increase significantly.
Yeah. Do you have a rough idea of how many people have utilised your service so far, Mark?
As in relation to Safe and Found online, or have been reported missing?
They've actually been reported missing for the FORCER protocol.
Yeah, so the 75 veterans been identified, but it's actually the number of that is higher, because some of those are foreign nationals who have served in their armed forces. But unfortunately, the FORCER protocol at the moment doesn't cover those people, just because of the referral mechanisms in relation to OpNova, etc. So the number of those is a lot higher. We do have we have identified 75 people, but Greater Manchester, as you know, is a massive place. We have just short of 30,000 missing people every year, which is huge numbers, and that number's actually starting to come down because of some of the proactive work that we're doing in other areas of policing in relation to missing people. But we have had 75 that we've identified and 75 that we've located, which is the key, because you can have hundreds of missings, but if you're not finding them, then and putting the support in place for them, then the processes you have in place don't work, do they? But we're identifying them, we're locating them, and what the FORCER protocol has done is it is increasing that awareness to officers around the risk around veterans, because of that constant push internally and externally about the FORCER protocol and about the risk. Then officers are starting to understand the history, understand why people get PTSD, understand what needs to be done once you find people to put the support in place they need.
I think that can only be a benefit, a massive benefit, because those are conversations then that you will probably find ripple out into other areas. So it doesn't just happen when somebody goes missing, but I know they were already starting to happen when somebody was brought into custody. It was an automatic question, are you a veteran? But it starts to engage across the wider platform. And that can only be a positive. And I'm just wondering, in terms of numbers then, are you seeing a sudden increase or in the number of people that are now creating records on Safe and Found, so that your record numbers or the number of people that are engaging with Safe and Found to create that information, is that increasing now as well?
Yeah, so those, unfortunately, I don't have those figures with me, but the numbers are increasing on Safe and Found online. Within those first few weeks, we had about 10 records. I think we're not far off play 100 records now. But it's also had that impact on the Herbert Protocol, because the Herbert Protocol was being trialled by West Yorkshire Police in relation to people with dementia. I've just done some work with a colleague of mine called Pete Morley and Jeff Hurst again on introducing the Herbert Protocol within GMP as well. So we're going to go live with that on Tuesday next week, the 23rd of April, which coincides with the National Dementia Care Conference in Manchester. So what it's done by advertising and sort of increasing the publicity around the FORCER protocol, it's actually increased numbers in West Yorkshire in relation to the Herbert protocol, because it's always all on that same website, and people are seeing, and me and Jeff have seen when we've been looking through the data, is there is a definite overlap between dementia and people with veterans. I'm not saying being a veteran is a cause of dementia, because I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is those people who are missing, that they are sometimes both have dementia and they're a veteran. So that's why it makes sense for us to have the Herbert Protocol as part of Safe and Found Online, as an online system within GMP, because the system, the database is the same, and those risks overlap. So that's why we've decided, along with Jane Hyam, who's our missing from home lead in GMP, to introduce the Herbert as part of the Herbert Protocol, as part of that sort of extra process and safeguarding around missing people.
That makes absolute sense.
It does. It's almost like this could be the pilot for a much wider suicide prevention process, which actually means that you don't actually, it's not limited to veterans or dementia specific conditions, but becomes anybody who is at risk can have a safe and found record. Because let's face it, the ideal is to get to zero suicide, isn't it?
Yeah, so we've had those conversations. I've had those conversations with my command team at Greater Manchester, where we're looking at potentially introducing the Philomena protocol, which is for children, onto Safe and Found Online, and having that capacity, that online ability to access information quickly is key when you have missing people, because you need to have accurate information. You need to have it quickly to identify inquiries, to then find people faster. And there's more work to do around that, because obviously children is a different element altogether that we need to look at and work on. But it's something that we are looking at in GMP, how we use Safe and Found Online and our processes to protect all vulnerable people, not just veterans. And that's what we are looking at the moment. And unfortunately, I don't have a date for you for how long that's going to take, because we have to work through internal processes, and obviously because the Philomena involves children, we have to look at more of the safeguard elements about how that data is stored. But it's for all, trying to protect all vulnerable people, really.
I think the main thing from that, Mark, is it's a start, and it's a start of an idea, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a start of an idea. Safe and Found Online are doing a great job of having that online portal for people to store that information. And the sort of future vision of Safe and Found Online for me is, like I said before, is to have that system in place to protect all vulnerable people, and not just veterans, not people with dementia, anybody that is having a difficult time in life and has the potential to go missing. That system is there, and the processes can be in place for us to do that. But again, it's a bit of a work in process, but a work in progress. But we'll get there at some point.
Sometimes, I suppose, in my experience, when I'm working with people and we're having these conversations, I think one of the hardest things people find is starting that conversation when they suddenly become aware that, actually, I think there's something bigger going on here, and what you're telling me is that you're contemplating suicide. And people get very stuck in that conversation of, what do I do, and how do I open that, and how do I start that conversation? And in a way, that Safe and Found portal almost gives a mechanism to structure that conversation that says, actually, I want to keep you safe. And it gives you almost that format. There's almost a rationale, and it makes maybe that conversation sometimes easier to have, because there's a bigger, wider purpose and plan that you can fall back on that to help actually safeguard somebody, to help say to them, are you in a situation where you need help and support? What's happening for you right now? Because sometimes it's the mechanism that's also just as important to have that conversation. I think Safe and Found has the potential to be a mechanism for a huge amount of people with that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's got the ability to cover lots of different areas of vulnerability and help safeguard those people. But like you said before there, so it gives people an opportunity. So it's the Safe and Found online website. It's got 2 sections, Herbert and FORCER Protocol. But each section has also a support mechanism. So it's got a section there where if you think actually uploading my information isn't for me, you can access the support through that website. There's lots of different charities on there that are willing to offer support and help. So it's just getting people to that website, go and have a look at it, go and see it, and make your own decision on what you want to do with your information. But if you feel that you are vulnerable and you are in a position where you may go missing in the future, then there's no reason why you shouldn't upload your information. Your information is secure on that system, and we only access it if you're reported missing. We don't access it at any other point. We access it if you go missing. So give some people a bit of a safety net, like you sort of mentioned, a bit of a safety net to upload their information. Think, right, at the moment, I'm in a headspace where I feel comfortable with my life. I'm happy with what I'm doing, but at some point I might not be. So my information's on there, and it gives them a bit of a safety net that actually, if I am reported missing, then the police have access to information where when I'm not feeling myself, the police can then come and find me and help me, and I think that's what's really important.
I think the nice thing about that is that if you have been in that situation where your thinking has got to the point where it's suggesting that this is a possible viable solution for you, and I'm picking my words very carefully because I think sometimes that process that gets you to that point of overwhelm is sometimes just our brain desperately trying to find a way to get us out of overwhelm. But it can leave you with that almost fear of what happens if I have that thought again. What happens if this seems like a viable solution for me again? And actually that FORCER protocol, that Safe and Found piece starts to help manage that process, starts to help go, well, actually, as you say, rightly enough, there is a safety net there. But it also might give you a means to have that conversation with the people around about you, because that might be a situation you haven't shared. But it also puts it in a situation where it becomes easier because you can say, I'm safeguarding myself because this is not my intention. But you need to know this is there so that if it does get to a point where it gets dark for me again, that this is here.
Yeah, and all that support's on the website there, so you can go on there and click any of the links to get that support and start having those conversations. It might be that you don't want to have those conversations with family and friends because of the upsetting nature of those conversations. So have it with someone you don't know. To open up and tell them how you feel, and those people will get you the help you need. And sometimes, I met a friend of mine only a couple of days ago at a breakfast club, really struggling with his mental health. Has done for quite a number of years since leaving the forces. But just having that breakfast in the morning, having a bit of a laugh with each other and talking about the old days, when you're in the army together. I could see the change in him when he left, and I'm not saying that will resolve all his issues, but it's a start, isn't it? It's about having those open conversations about the difficulty in finding work, etc., and making sure he's got the help. And I won't mention him, I won't name him, but he's getting some support from Courage at the moment, which is really, really positive. He's doing an electrician's course, which is really positive. He's getting himself in a position where he can earn money for himself and not relying on other people and relying on the government to provide money for him. And it's just he's getting his life back on track, which is really, really important. And I even said to him, I said, look, when this comes into Cheshire, I mean, get your information uploaded onto Safe and Found online, because you don't need information now. We don't need the information now because you're in a settled position. But if something changes in your life where you become vulnerable, then we've got that information about you to be able to find you quicker and help you. So
I'm wondering if I'm wondering if you've had a similar situation, Mark, where almost by the nature of talking about it, you enable disclosure. It's almost like you create the safe space that somebody else can step into and go, I've been there. Sorry, Rich, I cut you off there.
Yeah, I was wondering, Mike, Is there, so if somebody doesn't have the capacity to upload their details, can somebody else do it for them? Or they have that
Yeah,
concern that somebody is vulnerable?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So as you go on to Save and Found Online, you go to register your information. There's 3 separate boxes. So the first box is you're uploading your own information. The second box is a third party charity or organisation. It may be someone like yourselves who says, right, I'm speaking to a veteran. They've consented to upload their information. So you tick that box for them. And then there is the third box, which is that they haven't got capacity. So in relation to the FORCER or mental illness or dementia, then if someone hasn't got the capacity, you can tick that box then to say, actually, I'm doing this for a safeguarding reason. This person is vulnerable. They don't have capacity to make their own decisions, and that's why I'm uploading their information. But again, it's really straightforward on their website. It makes it really clear on the consent process. We just have to make sure that we do have consent for Safe and Found Online. But a lot of companies I've spoke to, charities I've spoke to, Walking with the Wounded and Op Courage, Op Nova, and some of the other charities that have said, I spoke with a lady called Catherine Glass this morning, who does a lot of work with care homes, and they're all starting to introduce Safe and Found Online, the FORCER protocol, as part of their sort of onboarding consent process, because it's all about that wraparound packaging. It's not just about the counselling support. It's about what happens if something doesn't quite go as planned, and how do we find you and get you back to where you need to be, chatting with the right people and getting the support.
Yeah, it is all that holistic care, isn't it? That people do need, rather than just a bit here and a bit there, and then people get really overwhelmed by the whole process and just completely disengage from it. Then they get themselves back in trouble again.
Yeah, and that's why we use OpNova, because OpNova for policing is really, really straightforward, because we do it already in custody. Mm-hmm. So now we do OpNova referrals for any other veteran in any other sort of area of policing, because you need to make a process really, really straightforward. Instead of saying actually Op Courage is for mental health, Op Fortitude for homelessness, etc., then we wanted one straight path into support, really, where officers don't need to make a decision on how or what type of illness or issue that somebody has. It's just that one referral, and OpNova then will pass that referral on to the relevant agency who can then help that person.
Well, it shouldn't be up to the officers to coordinate that support, because that then isn't the best use of their time. They're not caseworkers. They're there for emergency response, emergency support. After that, it's right that there should be a central point of contact that can take that coordination on board, because the last thing you then want to do is overwhelm somebody who's already overwhelmed with further decisions that they just don't have the capacity to process through at that point in time.
No, exactly. And we wanted a process where it's literally one caseworker, one phone call saying, right, what are the issues? How do we help you? And then they can just refer that in and have that seamless transition into treatment then. Instead of saying, actually, well, you need to contact Op Courage today, and you need to contact Fortitude, and you need to do this. It becomes a really blurred boundaries. I think it needs to be just that one system in and out, and then they can get the help they need.
So what the key
and police officers are not mental health workers,
No,
they're not mental health workers, they're not. They do deal with mental health quite regularly, but we're not mental health workers.
Yeah.
We're not experts on PTSD, on other mental illnesses. So we can identify and see when people are at risk, but it's to then be handed over to the NHS and to other medical treatment to be able to give them that help they need. That is the easiest route through OpNova.
Well, the other thing is that our police force doesn't have the capacity to know every single network and support network available for all the different sectors of our population. It doesn't have. It's physically impossible. But if there's collaboration amongst the networks that give you the single points of contact, then that makes everybody's life easier. and more effective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, we depending on your knowledge. I mean, since I've started the FORCER protocol, the amount of different charities and organisations that are involved in veterans has really surprised me. It's the landscape is massive, and you could literally refer a veteran to a different charity for something slightly different. All over Manchester, and it becomes a really difficult process then when you're trying to show 8,000 officers, 8,101 officers at the moment within GMP. Trying to educate them on who to refer to at what point becomes really difficult. So that's why, like I said before, that's why OpNova is crucial to that. So we can just refer straight into OpNova, and then they can make the decision as professionals within the veterans landscape. They can make the decision on where that needs to sit.
Yeah. So in terms of the rollout then, so we're looking at Cumbria, and the other region you mentioned earlier was Hampshire. So Cumbria and Hampshire. So in terms of your key learnings that you've taken from your pilot in Greater Manchester, if you're looking at those two rollouts, then they've got a bit of work to do ahead of them and a lot of education. And no doubt you will be probably front and centre in both of those, sharing a lot of your knowledge and understanding, Mark. But I suppose is there anything that you've learned along the way that you're going, yeah, that was a key learning for us. That was really successful. We need to do more of that going forward and really maximise that.
Yeah, so the key learning for me really is education to police officers. Is keeping things really, really simple. Because unless you tell people exactly what they need to do, then unfortunately they won't do it, because they've got so many other elements of policing to do that they've got to literally be spoon-fed what to do. And that's what me and Jeff have been working on. So what we've introduced, which we didn't have at the beginning, is single points of contact. We call them SPOCs on each district. We've got 12 districts. And we've introduced those. The majority of them are veterans, and the majority of them are supporting the Armed Forces Covenant. And they will deliver training to officers on the districts at that local level to get that more information across. And OpNova have kindly provided us with it's about a 15-minute video, a few interviews with different people that have been referred to OpNova and been through their systems, and sort of that look at life of how it works and how grateful they are for that support. And it's about that education to officers. So we are sharing that within our districts now. The officers have started to roll that out since actually this morning. We had an initial training session this morning. We've got 2 tomorrow. So it's just about that internal communication, really, speaking to every officer and making them aware around that risk. I mean, the officers are now starting to understand the risk around veterans, but trying to communicate that to 8,000 people is really, really difficult. So it's just about making sure that you get that message clear and keep that consistent message going, constantly. Me and Jeff do it regularly. If for example, someone hasn't been referred to OpNova just due to, a misunderstanding or etc., we'll recontact the officer and say, are you aware you're not done the referral? And this is what you need to do in future. And it's just about that constant education. And again, it takes time. That the more and more we do that, the more officers learn, the more they talk to each other and say, actually, yeah, I got contacted because I didn't do an OpNova referral. Have you done one for this person? And it just starts to flow. But what I am really sort of excited about, and it's not really a learning point, but what I am excited about is there's a lot of people that want to get involved in the FORCER protocol, but more on a national scale. Like I said this morning, I spoke to Catherine Glass this morning, who works a lot with care homes, and she has got access to the national network for care homes, nationally, and they want to introduce that as part of an onboarding process for their people. But it's sort of limiting us a little bit now. We've sort of grown that much, so we're sort of being held back a little bit because it's not being rolled out, or it's only just starting to be rolled out. But once we get more and more forces on board, the more and more national companies will be able to support us and help us get more information on Safe and Found online, and also work with us in relation to our Armed Forces Covenant and just raising that awareness around the risk of veterans, really.
Mm-hmm. Is there any scope of this going international mark to say the US, Canada?
Well, I've not heard anything as yet. I'm surprised America haven't looked at this, because I know the support that they put in for veterans is literally world class, isn't it? The way they treat their veterans when they come out of the forces seems to be the best in the world. I know Mr. Johnny Mercer wants us to be supporting veterans, better than anyone else in the world, which I'm sure we're working towards doing that. We have had discussions with Gibraltar, because obviously they're a British police force, aren't they? The only issue is the sort of the up-and-over referral side, that the sort of veterans pathway, and we'd have to work out how that veterans pathway would work. But there's no reason why it couldn't go internationally, that they could use a similar process. I mean, they'd have to probably use a different company to be able to do that, but there's no reason why we couldn't set them up and show them how that would work wherever it is in the world, really. I mean, that would be exciting, wouldn't it, if it went to America and Canada? I mean, that's massive, isn't it? But I think we've got to concentrate on the UK for now.
First, yeah.
I think we don't want to expand our boundaries too much. And what's really important for me, and I said this to Claire, and I said this to everybody really, is that every police force that takes on the FORCER protocol needs to understand why we're doing this. Mm-hmm. It's not just about finding missing people and ticking a box. It's about Alan FORCER. It's about the trauma of that family had been through when Alan went missing. And it's about finding vulnerable people and making sure that once we've found them, we then put support in place. It's not about, our police force now does this, so we protect veterans. Well, we want to make sure that we are actually protecting veterans, finding veterans very quickly, and also putting their lives back on track. And that's really important for me. And it has been from the very beginning, really, making sure that people are getting the help they need. Because ultimately it will reduce the demand. That's what Ali said before. It'll reduce demand across police. If we get the support right for people that are veterans or serving the armed forces, then it will reduce that demand. You get them into better employment. It'll reduce domestic violence. It'll reduce missing episodes. It'll reduce homelessness, and that's something that we have to work on and get right.
I think one of the other things, I suppose, that I'm very aware of is when I look at the statistics, the numbers, the roll-on impact of one death by suicide, then that also, one of the saddest facts about that is it also incrementally increases the risk for those that know that individual of suicide. And that means then that there's almost like a ripple effect. And if we can capture and safeguard that one person, then we stop that ripple. We remove the risk of that thought occurring to somebody in their network because that thought's been introduced, because they're dealing with the loss of that individual. So that ripple isn't just about those 1,000 people, but it's about the 14 or 15 people that they come in contact that they could also be at risk of, if even one of those then this makes that decision for themselves. So it is massive. It's really, really important, because if you don't have those conversations, you don't have those mechanisms, then how do we stop the ripples? It spreads. We had to stop the spread.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's why we want this new bereavement by suicide paper and support that's just been introduced to be part of that sort of referral mechanism, be part of that aftercare package. Because I hate to say it, but we won't save the life of every veteran, will we? Yeah. That is the reality of it at the moment. So if we can provide additional support and a package to families, to people's children, to help them through that process, then we are, in theory, going to try and stop or reduce that ripple massively. I'd love to say that we will save every veteran's life and we won't have any suicides, but like I said before, that is very unlikely. I'm hoping it doesn't happen, but it's unlikely. And it's how we then deal with that and how we then support those loved ones around that person to prevent that spread.
Doesn't mean to say it can't be a goal we aim for, though, does it?
Oh no, it's always been an aim, hasn't it? It's probably an aim of lots of people to prevent that from happening. And at some point, we'll get there because the support will be right, the help will be right, and we'll be getting them, the right jobs that they need to support their families. Because they bring out loads of skills. Ex-service personnel, veterans bring loads of skills, especially to things like policing and different types of engineering, etc. And we can, with the right support, they can get the right jobs. And I think if they're in that stable employment,
it helps give purpose again.
A lot of things can be built on that. I'm not saying that work. Absolutely, yeah. It gives them identity, doesn't it? You know what I mean? It gives them identity. It gives them that purpose in life. It gives them some income to be able to provide and support for their family. It gives them the holidays they want with the children and all those additional effects. I'm not saying work is everything, and money certainly isn't. But it gives the support for that.
Yeah.
Whole network of people.
It's a huge positive mark.
You're sort of having that knock on. Yeah, you're having that constant knock-on effect. You're having a knock-on effect of the next generation of people that are joining the forces or get into employment because mum and dad have come out of the forces, they've had the help they need, they've got the right employment, they send the kids to the right schools and they get the right education and that just grows, doesn't it?
The last time we spoke, Mark, you were also talking about employment opportunities within GMP for veterans and the fact that you're actively trying to increase veteran numbers within GMP. So how's that going?
It's going really well, actually. I'm personally supporting a veteran who's coming out the household cavalry and joining the police, so he's working through that process at the moment. But we've also, myself, Maxine Livesey and Jim Jones have done some work with a large sort of expo company for veterans, and there's a large sort of, I don't know what you call it, an expo conference in Manchester on the 24th of July.
Brilliant.
Yeah, might pop along and see you.
Yeah, so GMP will get. Yeah, come and see me. Yeah, yeah. So we will be there at that event, encouraging veterans, to come and join Greater Manchester Police. Like we said before, the skills that they bring and the confidence they bring and the ability to the professionalism they bring to policing is you can't get that from anywhere else.
Other police forces and emergency services are available as well, Mark.
No, they're not. Yeah, So, I mean, obviously, we'd always encourage anybody to come and join Greater Manchester Police because it's one of the best police forces in the country, if not the best police force in the country now. We've made massive steps forward in the last couple of years under Mr. Watson, and we are openly recruiting veterans. So please do come to Greater Manchester Police and be part of this family in Manchester, because it is a really good force to work for. And why wouldn't you want to work for a big force like Manchester? So much diversity in Manchester. It's a great place to be.
Yeah.
That part I think is really important, though, isn't it? Because in that conversation, sometimes people get the wrong impression of veterans because what's talked about is the challenges, the crisis, the things that sometimes are people are really struggling with. But there's the flip side of that coin, which says when the right support is in place, actually a veteran is superb in terms of career opportunities, in terms of the people you want in your community, in terms of the people you want round about you. It's about putting the right conditions in place to support that. Yeah,
absolutely. Like we said, we talked about the skills that veterans bring, but I think it's really important for veterans to understand that they're not, even if they leave in the infantry or whatever, they may not bring actually any sort of sort of skill that would, like they're not a joiner, they're not a mechanic or whatever they want to be. They're not an electrician, but just the skills they've gained by having interaction with other people, wearing a uniform, turning up to work on time, doing as they're told. That is the stuff that we need in policing, and a lot of employers need, because they want people that, in the morning, you want someone to turn up and open the door of the business and go to work, don't you? You want people to turn up to work on time and looking smart and ready to go to work. And that's what veterans do bring. They bring that uniformity to doing as they're told and getting to work on time and doing the job. And that's what we need in the police, and that's what everybody else does need in employment. And I think veterans need to understand that they are bringing skills. So when they leave the forces, have the confidence in yourself that actually these companies need you, because you are, you are bringing so much passion and ability to whatever role it is.
Well, there is compared to when you left, I'd imagine, Mark, there's a massive change of support within all that. There's organisations like the Gen Dit Network on LinkedIn, or John Stevenson's with his Forces Transition Group, and organisations like that just really helping to go to the outbound force community. These are skill sets you've got. You don't realise it, but they're here. They're present. And employers are actively seeking those skills and abilities that come with the forces people.
Well, it's that discipline, isn't it? The consistency, the follow through, the fact that actually, that what you commit to gets done. It's all of those things that sometimes employers really struggle with, as well as problem-solving skills, the capacity to adapt and change. All of that, which aren't necessarily, as you say, linked about hard skills. That's about character. That's about personality. That's about views. That's about behaviours. And I worked in HR for a long time, and I would take that every day over a piece of paper with a skill on it, because I can train the skill, but trying to change the behaviours, that's an uphill struggle. But if I already have the behaviours, the values, and the consistency, then I can turn that to anything. I can train, I can provide hard skills, but changing those behaviours, that's the hard part. So that was a bit of a preach, wasn't it? Sorry.
No, but you're right, aren't you? Those values, they're instilled in people, aren't they? It's very difficult to change someone's values and behaviours. But like you said, to teach someone how to do a role, that's the easy part, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The bit is the values and behaviour and the structure of how they've led their lives over the last number of years is key, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it is incredibly valuable. Incredibly valuable. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
Mm-hmm. So,
no problem.
Anything you'd want to say in summary, or final last points you want to make, Mark?
I'll just say that if any other police forces in the country that haven't already made contact with us and want to discuss the Herbert Protocol and the FORCER Protocol, because we're doing that as like a one package deal type thing at the moment. Safe and Found Online is free to policing. It's going to be free for everybody that signs up onto Safe and Found Online, so there is no cost for that. And please do make contact with me at GMP. We have an email address, the FORCER Protocol @gmp.police.uk. So if anybody wants to make contact and have those discussions about how they set that up in their force area, then please do that. And it's really important that the more forces we get involved, the more access we'll have to other organisations, a wider spread of support for veterans. So please do get in contact, and thank you, really. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about the FORCER Protocol and how important it is to support veterans. So thank you both for that.
Well, thank you for taking on, Mark.
Yeah, long may those conversations continue, and thank you, because you've done a huge amount of work and continue to do a huge amount of work. And I know that's part of a team effort, but it's very much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.